and welcome to another edition of the live stream Bow Wow Bill show. I don't know. I don't really have a name for it or anything. As always, it's just a live stream. I'm going to run to my page here, and I'm so excited. I have a wonderful guest joining me today, Cheri Lucas. But one second. How you doing, Cheri?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Bill?
Doing great. I'm waiting for my computer to load so I can share this. Okay. I'm going to share it on my personal page as well as Triple R and Dogs Chatting. So, would you mind doing a brief introduction of?
Not at all.
Okay.
Of myself.
Yeah, of just yourself. Of yourself, and just tell people, where you're from, where you're out of at California, and your second chance at love, and then just give me a second to share this stuff, and then I'll be right back with you.
Okay.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah. So, are you ready for me to go? I'm rusty at that. I don't know how to do this.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So, I live in Templeton, California, which is halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles on the Central Coast. My favorite part of the world. I'm super happy living there. I have a shelter. I have a rescue that I've run for 25 years called Second Chance at Love Humane Society. And we've placed over 5,000 dogs that we pull primarily from high-kill shelters all around California. And we're strictly no-kill. We're all volunteer run. And my mostly girls, I have a few male volunteers, but most of them I work with, and I train them on the basics of how to deal with the rescue dogs that are in our care, so they don't get overly coddled, and they learn how to sit and wait for their food. So they're not out and out trainers, but the girls know their stuff. And so I do that. And then I have been doing dog behavior work for about almost 18 years now, which I learned to do kind of as a means to an end. I really had no ambition to become a trainer, except I had dogs that fought and had separation anxiety, human aggression, all kinds of things. And I woke up one day and went, this has got to change. Because I had a shelter full of dogs I couldn't place because I couldn't fix them. So I had to find a way to fix them so that I could get them homes. And so that's what my focus has been the last 18 years is working with the public, doing private consultations. I do teach a lot of workshops. I have a training partner, Brian Agnew, and he and I do a kind of a pretty unique workshop called the Lucas Agnew Missing Link, which usually it's full of trainers, almost exclusively. I teach a workshop for women only that's called Wellness Unleashed, and women bring their dogs, and it's about emotional, learning the skill of emotional well-being, and the dogs play a big part in that. So that's a fun, really one of like my favorite thing right now. And we've traveled all over. Brian and I have taught in Brazil, England. I'm going to Germany this year on my own in August. Brian's going to the UK on his own. I've taught in Italy, Spain, lots of places, like seeing the world doing this. And I'm super happy with my life. I love the direction it's going, and I love to work, and I don't want to stop.
It sounds like it. You are a busy lady.
Yeah, I got a lot going on, but it's all good.
Excuse me. So what got you working with dogs, Cheri?
Well, just, hitting that spot where I have 20 acres in California, and my house is at the top of the acreage, and the shelter is at the lower part. And so every day that I would drive off my property, I would drive by my shelter. And of course, I spent a lot of time there anyway, because we're all volunteer run. So I would spend the better part of my day there. But I didn't know anything about dogs, like with the exception of loving them and saving them. That's it. Gave them a ton of affection, never walked them. And as a result, you can imagine, I had sometimes 40, 50 of the most unbalanced dogs you can imagine. Of course, with no idea that I had anything to do with it at all. I didn't understand anything, and why would I? We don't really grow up knowing how to understand dogs. It's not something that we automatically learn, especially in the Western culture. And so I was pretty desperate. And then one day somebody told me about a guy named Cesar Millan that lived in LA. And back in the day, nobody had heard of him. And I got his phone number and I called him and he answered the phone. He answered the phone, K9, that's how he used to answer the phone. And I started talking to him. His English wasn't that great back then, but I was raised in Central America, so I speak fluent Spanish. So we immediately kind of had a little bond there. And he said, well, come, if you want, come and see the center tomorrow. Come on down. I said, I have a Rottweiler that I'm really worried about. Can't get this dog near anybody. And I drove down and met him. And then he started to come up with his family. I got a little trailer for him and fenced it in. And that was he called it his castle. And he would come up with the kids and the wife, and I would cook. I love to cook. I used to be a professional cook. And so I would cook, and we would walk dogs and cook and walk dogs and cook and walk dogs and eat. And so that's how I was inadvertently trained. Again, he really kind of had to tell me that you're a trainer now, because I never thought of myself. All I thought was that I finally have tools. I finally know what I'm doing, and I can begin to make a change, elicit a change in some of these dogs. And so that's how it got started. Really innocently, accidentally.
Well, we got some people joining us. We have Tosh from all the way from New Zealand, says, hi, Cheri and Bill, two of my favorite people. This is exciting. We got Linda Cutrera says, miss you, Cheri and Brian. And Cameron Thompson, hey, Cameron, says, hey, friends, what a lovely surprise. And that's amazing. And when was this? Do you remember what year it was when you first met Cesar and gave him a call?
It was a long time ago. Calvin was a year old. So I think he's 20. I think he's 20 now. I think.
Wow.
So it's about 20 years ago. Yeah, it was a while ago. Caesar's place was in the hood, downtown LA, South Central LA, in a warehouse like an area, pretty brutal area to be in, and so you'd lock your doors, drive in, and hang out there. But so I had a lot of accessibility to him at the time, because he didn't have a way to bring his dogs anywhere outside of that concrete jungle kind of an area. So he would come up at the time with his wife. They'd bring 2 vans full of dogs. The most fascinating thing I've ever seen. He'd come up with a van, open the back of it. There'd be literally 20 dogs back there. No seats in the van. Little tiny things, great big things, unaltered dogs, altered dogs. And they'd all just wait for him to say, come on out. And they'd come out. I mean, no fights in the van, nothing. He lived it. He was entrenched, in those days, because he didn't have a show, so he didn't have a lot of employees. So he was down there all the time. So it was pretty fascinating.
He was in the trenches, so to speak, as we say.
He was in the trenches. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I said it's interesting how you said how you had to learn based on the needs that you experienced, and it's we've had this happen. Who did I interview? JT Clough, even last week, was talking about a Malinois that was crazy, that no other trainer could train, and it kind of forced her hand to learn how to train dogs so she could handle her own dog. And a couple other trainers that I've spoken to, the same thing happened, and then they see that this what they have learned is they see a misconception or a big gap of the knowledge in the dog training industry, and they go into it with love in their heart, because the dogs, they put us in such an emotional, a wonderful emotional space, and they put our mind, they can make us forget about even the most trying circumstances. And that's why these therapy dogs that go into hospitals, and you can see people that are literally dying, put a smile on their face, and they could forget about, for just a brief moment, what's going on, and put that love and emotion in that dog. And so I get it. They're super emotional, hot buttons for us. And I remember you saying previously, as we were talking about this, about you had the rescue mentality. Mm-hmm. And can you speak on that? What is a rescue mentality?
It's a powerful thing, I will tell you that. Is it starts out, and of course I'm making a broad generalization,
Right.
and I'm talking about my experience and the experience of many other people that I've known, but I'm not necessarily speaking for every rescuer. But I will tell you, it's a work of the heart, and you start off and you want to save everything, and the first thing you realize is that if you don't have boundaries, you get in trouble really fast. You wind up taking on dogs that you can never place, that aren't safe around your volunteers and your staff, and then
Mm.
you're stuck. So that's one of the first lessons you learn. But you're leading with your heart, which sounds beautiful, but in reality, it's very dangerous because you're spending so much time feeling sorry for the dog that you really can't help it. You really can't help it. We can't help each other if we feel sorry for each other. We can only help each other
Mm.
if we help each other get out of whatever spot we're in, right? And so we start humanizing the dogs. We start feeling bad for the dogs. We focus so much on the story of where the dog came from and what he must have gone through. And meanwhile, the dog's sitting there going, "This is so cool. I love your shelter." It's big and open, and I get walked every day, and they don't have any recollection even for the most part. And seldom are they traumatized to the point that they can't get over something, as long as they're allowed to get over it. But a lot of times we keep them stuck in that spot. But I refer to it as myself in those days as being a humaniac. That was
Right.
all I wanted to do was save. I didn't know any of the skills I needed to know to fix a dog or to get a dog ready for a home. And I saw it just throughout the industry of rescue, is that's very common. And people get so deep into that aspect of rescuing, dropping everything. They've got to go save that dog no matter what. And their relationships with people begin to suffer. They get really angry. They learn to hate people and judge people because they see the worst of what humans can do, right? And so their
Wow.
perspective gets really warped. And I would say the most dangerous part, and I'm speaking from experience of my own, the most dangerous thing that happens to us is we turn into judgment machines where we just judge everybody. And it's like, well, that's why I love dogs, because look at how horrible people are. And it's a horrible place to be in, and it doesn't serve you well as a rescuer if you don't love people and if you don't learn to forgive people and to think that the possibility that people behave in a certain way with dogs for reasons other than they just want to abuse a dog. There are
Yeah.
there are other circumstances, right? And then if you
Yep.
go into training from there and you still hate people, you're going to be a lousy trainer. Because if we all know, those of us that have been in this for a while, is that training a dog and rehabilitating a dog is as much about the people, if not more so, than it is
Yeah.
about the dog. You can fix the dog like that, but then you have to love and have compassion for the human, because they're there paying you and spending time with you because they need your help.
Yeah.
But we
And
sit there and go, "Oh, this client's driving me crazy." It's like, well, you have a client. Be
yeah.
grateful that you have a client, and be grateful that the client didn't decide just to dump their dog or euthanize him. Instead, they're coming to you because they trust you and they want to learn from you. So you have to learn how to be compassionate towards
That's right.
people, or you'll make yourself miserable and you'll never be able to help anybody. So that's kind of a
Yeah.
long-winded way of
Well, I mean, but
answering your question.
it's absolutely true. I mean, in Brad Strickland, I was speaking with him, who's out of Alabama, and he's talking about how, a lot of times the dog's behavior is just a symptom of an overall issue that's going on with the family unit.
Oh, sure.
And sometimes you have to thin
Right.
slice and kind of get in, and sometimes, I mean, you're addressing, I mean, just for instance, I dropped off a dog yesterday that I worked with that he was a little guy with some reactivity issues that needed to be addressed head on. And that's it. That's what I told the client. Look, this needs to be stopped and addressed right away. And I took the
Right.
dog in 5 days. But, I also understood that this client just lost her husband. Her husband just passed away a couple weeks ago. And her other dog just passed away a couple months ago, and
Yeah.
there's something, we just never know what's going on in our clients' lives. And not only that, but I have another client that has like 7 kids, and I don't even know how she does it. Like, and
Right.
we expect her to do the dog as well. But I mean, it's just, you are absolutely right. As a trainer, if you are getting into the dog business because you don't like people, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, because just like she says,
Right.
it's more about the people. sometimes.
Right. No, it absolutely is, and it's that's the
Most
first
of the time.
one of the first things. Oh yeah, one of the first things that I tell people is when they come and I can see it, and I usually gauge it by um, I try to figure out how hardwired the behavior is in the dog and how bad the dog is based on whether if the owner shows up at the door with the dog and the dog is losing his marbles when he sees my dogs in the yard or on the front porch or whatever, that the human can't, or the owner can't handle the dog, and then I take the leash, and especially if the owner steps away and I get a completely different behavior, that tells me right there that the problem is the dynamics of the relationship between the owner and the dog. It has way less to do with just the dog. Otherwise, the behavior would be the same with me as it would be with the human. But
Absolutely.
somebody steps in, takes the dog, and is no nonsense about it, and it changes everything about the dog. They're just like, thank God, it seems like you know what you're doing. Like someone's in charge, as
Yeah.
opposed to, you know, um, but once again, people don't know that. It's incumbent on us to explain to people that that's a huge part, if not the whole part. I have a funny story. Um, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of it. I got a dog and it was absolutely driving their clients crazy. An Aussie or cattle dog type mix, which they tend to be wound up anyway, right?
Right.
And so, but this dog whined constantly, no matter what they did. If they were in the living room watching TV, he would sit there and look at each of them and just whine and whine and
Mm.
whine, and they would get so frustrated, try to move the dog around, and just like they had story after story after story of all the things that this dog did that was just constant whining. They couldn't sleep. She hadn't had a good night's sleep in about a year. So they brought the dog to me, and I basically just didn't do a lot of eye contact. I treated the dog as though the dog was completely irrelevant to me,
Okay.
because they were just all up in this dog, just all up in this dog. And the bottom line is they picked the dog up. Well, I brought the dog to them because it's local. I brought her to them. I went to see them, and they couldn't believe. We went on a walk. The dog wouldn't react to other dogs on the street. We went back in the house. I told her to go to a place. She stayed in the place. They watched TV. They called me that night and they said, it's like we don't have the same dog. And then and I said, well, she goes, is this going to wear off, or is this going to stay like this? And I said, well, is it going to wear off on you? Are you going to continue to do what I told you to do, which is basically just treat her as though she's irrelevant for now? You don't have to do that forever, but for now. They called me the next day and they said, it's amazing what happens to a dog when you just ignore them for a while. And it was
Yes.
just as simple as that. Just, like I try to tell people, we're all in a room together, but we all have space. As humans, we go into a social setting. There's people in the room, but they're not all up on top of each other. And are you okay? Are you okay? And petting each other and hugging each other.
Mm.
That's a normal
Staring at
social.
each other, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, do you think she's hungry? Just it would drive me crazy if someone was doing that to me. But
Yeah.
people don't understand how sensitive dogs are, even more so than we are, about that kind of thing. So they're getting all neurotic, and then the people think there's something wrong with the dog. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
fun when you get cases like that are easy.
yeah,
you
push
know?
button cases that are like, okay, cool, address
Yeah.
this. Here you go back. There you go. Easy
Yeah.
fix. But it's also understanding that dog on that level. And, and just like you said, you can see when you take that leash and the dog is like, oh, thank God. You can see that relief in that dog because now the weight of the world isn't falling on that dog's shoulders. That dog is looking for, a leader to take the brunt of that. And that's what I try to tell people is like, look, this is stress. When we see this dog reacting like this is
Sure.
stress. It's not good, not just for the dog, but it breaks down muscle tissue and brain. It's not good to be flooded with this adrenaline and adrenal, or what is it, adrenal glands, adrenalized state, whatever you call it. It's one of the most damaging substances on the brain, and it's good to have uh, that relief of like I don't need to take care of it. It doesn't fall on my shoulders.
Well, they get to retire, and that's I tell my clients, these are domesticated animals. These are animals that to have a relationship with this dog, we didn't go out into the wild to live like they live so that we could be with them out there. We brought them into our world. We modified their behavior so that they could learn to live with us, right? And we took away their responsibilities for being out there. But they come into the home, and if we start to get all up in them constantly, and if we let them rule and we do everything on their terms, then pretty soon, like you said, the weight of the world is on them. And I don't care how smart your dog is, he can't rule a human household. He's a domesticated animal. So if he feels that weight and that burden, and some people will even wear it as like a badge of honor, that, oh, our dog just lets us live here, ha ha. He comes up on the sofa, and when we sleep, we get the sliver of the bed and all this. And it's like, you're making your dog miserable. You need to understand that the dog really wants you to tell him what his role is and where he's supposed to be. And then they
Those
take the sigh of
boundaries
relief and
lie.
retire. And like you said, I mean, it will age. I've told clients, you're aging your dog. You're literally aging your dog, just like we would age ourselves if we were constantly under stress. If we didn't have any direction and we didn't know what to do, we would feel the same way. And so, yeah, the adrenaline, the cortisol, all the stuff that
Cortisol, that's
they're in
what I
that state. Yeah, yeah.
Well, and there's so many human contraptions that we have that might invoke a fear response with the dogs that they need to be introduced to, from basketballs to skateboards to city buses that have air compressors on them to tractors. I mean, think about how many things are in the human world that don't exist in the wild,
Yeah,
and those boundaries are defined by correction, and be like, knock it off, dude. This stops right now. And I think that's where people fall short, is just saying, hey, look, and just like what you were saying about the sliver of yielding over space, it's like, no, this is not acceptable behavior. And I have to tell my clients that, I often see a correlation with the kids. We were talking about that too, where a lot of times the kids might be a little bit unruly as well with the household that we work in. And some of this stuff can be correlated to that as well, the structures, the boundaries, the kids, or lack thereof, and the kids love that. Yeah. I remember one time when I was telling Brad this, like, I went into this house, and either these kids were going to sit down on the couch and be quiet, or I was going to leave. And so that was going to one of the two things. So I told the kids, I was like, hey, enough. Kids, get over here, sit down right now, listen to what I'm talking about, because it's about your dog. And I mean, you should have seen those kids. I mean, they got over there, and I love those kids. I know those kids even today. Yeah. And have a very special relationship with them because of that. And it's like breaking through the fog and talking to that dog and getting to know them, and taking the time also to let them know that they belong where they are.
Right. Oh, it's a gift. It's such a gift. It's like, thank God someone has finally taken over, and now I know where my place is, literally, no pun intended. But I know where my place is, what my role is in this house. Without that, they're just, I mean, in their natural world, they follow. They're following something. They would be lost. And you think about how many times in the course of a day that a dog in the wild, or a wolf, however you want to look at it, has to follow instruction, right? They have to, all the things that they have to do to earn what they get in the course of a day: finding water, finding prey, catching prey, killing prey, waiting their turn to eat, fending off predators. And for that, they don't get treats, they don't get high fives, they don't get they basically get the right to live one more day. That's what they get. They have the right to live one day by doing all of those things, right? And then they come into our world, everything's for free. We open up a bag or a can, here's your food, baby. That's they don't get to hunt anymore. They don't get to do all the things that they were hardwired to do. So when they come into our world and we give them, we challenge them psychologically. We give them things to do. That's why dogs do so well with agility work. Some of them do, not all of them are good at that, but we just give them something to do, and it just I can see them, that there's a different kind of fulfillment that they get over just walking. The walking is awesome, and that's what most of us have the time to do, but it's amazing when you see that when a dog's been allowed to exercise his brain and to do some challenges that he hasn't been able to do before. And that's more like the way he would have lived if he'd still been out in the wild. So
Absolutely. Well, I think the word that you used, fulfillment, was a good one. I mean, it's fulfilling, and
yeah,
that's something that is important. I mean, anything that fulfills you is important to you, and finding that in that dog is magical because you can see them light up, and they're like, "Oh, now you're talking," you know.
right, right.
Cameron Thompson says
Yeah,
boundaries are crucial in rescue, business, and life in general.
that's the truth. She's right on that, girl.
Yeah. Well, and if you have any questions, type them in the comment section. We'll ask them here live to Cheri. And what do you think? Why do you think we've kind of gotten off into the ditch with the relationships with our dogs? How come we're seeing so many reactive dogs nowadays? Do you think?
Well, I think the reactivity is a symptom. It's not the core problem. It's a symptom of the problem. Number one, I had an interesting thing happen to me fairly early in my career that I believe has a lot to do with a lot of people's behavior and with their dogs and a lot of the beginning of downfall of dogs. I did a consultation with a guy, big tall guy, came from my area is kind of wine country, cattle ranchers, and he showed up, a big tall, like 6'2", hat on, boots on, pit bull next to him, female pit bull next to him. His girlfriend was with him, and this dog was giving me the evil eye, like she just wanted to take me out. And I was standing in front of my house at the time. I didn't have my office. We were standing out there doing the consultation. He was telling me how awful she was and how she went after his girlfriend. She lunged at every dog she ever saw. And the whole time he's talking to me about her, he's stroking her head the whole time. And she's just fixated on me, like literally
Mm,
targeting right where she wants to. If he drops this leash, you're going down. And here's where I'm going to get you first. You could just see it. And he's
yeah.
petting her. And we got about 10 minutes into it. And I said, it's probably best if you don't pet your dog during the consultation because let's consider this work time, not affection time. And he goes, I wasn't petting her. And he meant it.
Mm,
He really didn't think he was petting her. And his girlfriend goes, yeah, you were. And I said, yeah, you were. And he said, oh, I didn't realize it. And we got further into the consultation. And then finally it hit me. And I said, by the way, what do you do for a living? And he said, oh, I'm the head prison guard up in Salinas at the level 5 penitentiary up there. And I went, really? I said, well, that's interesting. And I said, so what's it like up now? I was a criminal justice major, so I already knew the answer to this question. I said, so what's it like up there? Like, do you ever like get buddies, become buddies with some of those guys? And he goes, oh man, no. You got to go in there and you got to bring it. You got to have that command presence and you can't let your guard down because, they'll manipulate you and this, that, and the other. And I said, what if
wow.
you came home from work and you brought just a little bit of that home with you? And he goes, you know what, Cheri, when I come home, I don't want to do it anymore. And I thought, boom, light bulb. That's what it is. A lot of times is that even the most powerful people, like that,
Mm,
this Oprah was that way. Oprah, one of the most powerful women in the world, right? Had tons and tons of employees, lots of money, lots of power, lots of influence. But she had two totally messed up dogs because when she came home, she wanted her fur babies, and that's what she called them. She didn't
mm,
want to lead anymore. She wanted time off from leadership. And I believe really strongly that has a lot to do with it. I've seen it in people over and over again. People that are strong, they have businesses, they're CEOs and
yes.
everything. They want time off from it, and they don't realize it. It's not deliberate on their part. They just feel like that dog is going to be that emotional. It's like a dumping place for them to put everything
Wow.
that's gone wrong. Maybe good for them, not so good for the dog.
Emotional dumping
And so as
ground.
yeah, and so as a result, they show nothing but their soft side to a dog, thinking that they're showing love. Of course, from the dog's perspective, softness is weakness. Being tentative is weakness to a dog,
The
right?
sucker.
Giving too much affection. They don't give affection. They're not primates. They don't have arms. They
Mm,
don't hug and kiss in their world. And so when they start getting all this from us, we immediately go from leader, if we ever were leader, to follower. And all of a sudden, they're getting something for nothing. Well, remember my analogy about dogs in the wild. They don't get anything for nothing in the wild. They work for the right to live one day. So that's the perfect setup for a dog becoming reactive because you're empowering that dog and saying, I'm weak, I'm soft, I'm giving you everything for nothing. So when we go out for a walk, you better have my back. So there goes the dog down the street, lunging forward. Don't worry, I got it. I got this. That's what I think starts, in many cases, starts that reactivity and that
Yeah.
overprotectiveness and that feeling that they are on, which again, you talk about cortisol levels and adrenaline going up. That poor dog feels like he's got to take care of the household, the car, the humans, the kids, the other dogs. Can you imagine? I mean, that would be a nightmare to have that much responsibility.
A nightmare with a tipping point waiting to happen where that dog just goes nuts, and it just
Right.
becomes a volatile situation. John
Sure.
Sparks says true words, and he says, "Hi, Cheri. Hey, Billy. Hey, John." And, and I mean, I'm just blown away because I have clients like that. I have an attorney um, that that is like that, and we've done training sessions, multiples. Luckily, her dog's not. I mean, the dog's reactive, but I mean, it's just apparent that she's not going to do what it takes. And it's
Right.
exactly that. It's because she's a very powerful woman, and she has a lot on her plate, and a lot of stress.
Right.
And when she's off, and they don't want
Yeah.
to go down there anymore. They do it all day
Yeah.
long, and I get it, but
Yeah,
it
I get it too. That's just it. I feel for the owners because I totally understand. They didn't get a dog to, they got a dog because they wanted something that they could love unconditionally, that they could love no matter what. They would love them when they came home from work and they were grumpy or whatever. But I think sometimes you have to get to the point where you have to kind of play hardball with the owners. And I've yet to have anyone ever be offended when I've said this to them. But I've literally said, you're not doing your dog any favors by being soft with them. You
mm,
think it's affection, they think it's weakness. You're killing your dog. You're killing your dog. That, I mean, the shelter dogs that are getting nothing, that's a whole nother story. That's probably another show. But
yeah.
how that's another show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But
and I would love to
I
do
mean,
another
I'm
show with
starting
you.
to go there, and I'm going, don't go there. But but yeah, it's sometimes you just have to tell them when something's got to give. That's what I'll tell these people. Like, I get it that you're a CEO. I get it that you've got 5 kids. I get it that your husband's driving you crazy, and you just want to cuddle in bed with your dog. But there's fallout because that's why you're here. You brought your dog here because there's fallout because of the way you're treating your dog. He's not handling this well. And
Yeah.
so just like you would shift strategies with your kids, if you saw your kids falling apart, you've got to do something. You can't afford, sorry, that's the dog you got. You can't afford to do this with your dog anymore. You don't have that luxury anymore because his dog's going to end up doing something. He's going to lose his life or have to be rehomed, or you're just going to end up managing his behavior for the rest of your life. So, there's always something for the owner to gain, and some life lesson for them to learn when they have to step up and lead their dog. It may not be comfortable at first, but man, is it ever a step of growth for them when they do it.
Absolutely. It's so
You get
empowering.
what you want. You got to give up things. You know,
Well, you have
got to
to
give
humble
up things.
yourself, and look at the situation as like you said, that when you first started, that you're watching all these dogs go crazy, and you didn't know that you were contributing to this
Right.
before you met Cesar and before you went down there. And that's it. Is a lot of times I'm looking for that aha moment where they're like, wait, I wonder if it's me.
Right.
And then I'm like,
Yeah.
it is. Let's stop there for a second. I want to get a
Yeah.
magnifying glass and let's shine it right here. Why do you think it's you? Let's talk. Let's dissect
Yeah.
this. Because and then when they get it, and then when they put it into practice, and then they see the results, it's like you said, it's a whole different dog. But you can see that relief in the human and the dog,
Yeah.
and the bond, it gets stronger as
Yeah.
well.
Sometimes, Bill, what I'll do is if I see somebody that comes in and they're really green, they really don't understand the concept at all, and you can see them just kind of taking it in, but it's sort of going, some of it's going here, they're not sure. I will tell them, look, you guys made the time and the effort and paid the money to come and see me and spend time with me. So
That's
let's
right.
just try something. For the next 2 weeks, let's pretend that everything I said was the God's honest truth, gospel, that everything I said was right on, exactly true. And then you can throw it all out at the end of 2 weeks and say, that girl was crazy if you want. But just apply and commit to 2 weeks of doing everything I tell you to do. Making your dog wait before he eats, making your dog wait before he goes through any threshold, not letting him charge through this, up the stairs past you, looking for eye contact, getting him out of your bed, right? Exercising him more, whatever it might be, ignoring him more, making him go over to a place when you're watching TV, getting him off your sofa, just and the affection. This is the part they hate. And then I always say, there's one thing that you're really going to hate, but I would like you to not give your dog affection for 2 weeks. But hear me out. I'll have to stop, and they're like, right away. And I'll say, now, wait a minute. Now, dogs define affection differently than we do, right? Because dogs aren't primates. Big reminder. It's right. Like, what? No, they're not primates. They don't hug. So what I tell them is give them affection and different for every person, right? It might be affection, when you think about it, is kind of a gift. So for one person, affection might be, let's go for a walk in the park. For another person, it might be, I'd like a nice bottle of wine and a good dinner. Or, it's different for every person. For a dog, it's going to be different than it is for a person. So find different things that you can do that your dog would enjoy more than being hugged. Because the God's honest truth is they don't like it. And that's the other thing that that's really difficult for them to understand. Actually, your dog doesn't like being grabbed around the neck, which is why kids get bitten in the face. So every time you want to give affection to your dog in the next 2 weeks, go hug your spouse. Go hug your spouse and do something that your dog would really enjoy, like a quick walk, go throw the ball for him, do something that is more in the dog's world, something that he would be fulfilled by, as opposed to something that is just fulfilling you. It's worth a shot.
And I would like to challenge all the listeners that are watching this, whether it be live or after the fact, to do the same, to take Cheri's advice here and just follow her words of wisdom like she speaks the gospel, and see if you notice any changes in your dog. And if you do, comment down below. And just like you were talking about, some people, like a walk in the park might be good, or a nice dinner, or words of affirmation. There's a book that is intuitively coming to me right now called The 5 Love Languages. Have you ever heard of that one?
No, I haven't.
So I recommend this for everybody to read, especially for your spouse, if you're in a relationship, or for yourself as well. The 5 Love Languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts, by Gary Chapman. And basically, this is 5 basic languages of love that guides couples to better understanding the unique languages of love. And there's the 5 languages of love are, let me see if I can see them, but it's like what you were saying. It's interesting because, like, some people really love gifts. And that's one of the languages is a gift. Or some people really love words of affirmation, like, you're doing awesome. And if you don't give them words of affirmation, they're going to feel unappreciated. Where there's some people that you give them words of affirmation, they're like, shut up. It doesn't matter one bit to them. And, that's 5.
The point that you're making too is what I tell people also is affection is different for every person, so doesn't it stand to reason that would be different for a different species? Like, what resonates for you might not resonate for me. I mean, your wife may, for her birthday, might like something completely different than what I would like. You know what I mean? So people have to understand that. And dogs don't have that much of there's not this huge myriad of interest in a dog's life. They like food. They like exercise. If they don't even have sex anymore, if they're altered. So it's like, they don't get on the internet. They don't do social media. They don't go to school. They don't go to the gym. They just have a very small, but within those things are affection. Eating is affection. Going on a walk is affection. Going in I know dogs. Some of my dogs would rather sit in the car all day in front of the house. They like, come in now. They just like being in the car. That's what affection is. What like you were saying, what resonates for you, what's good for you, not what the other person wants to give you.
Well, it's natural for us to mirror, so and that can be a mistake. And I think, because it can be a mistake a couple ways. One, if we're a good person, we think everybody's a good person, and so sometimes that can lead us up to vulnerable for, to be robbed or whatever. But just like what you were saying, people will mirror their own perceptions upon another person or another species, where they anthropomorphize these animals, or put human characteristics or mirror their own perception on this animal. And I get it, because it's much more easier to understand when you can see things kind of through your own eyes. Does that make sense?
Right. No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's unfair, it's unfair for us to put those
absolutely.
expectations and expect our dogs to be, the same way we are. I sometimes I tell my clients, how would you like it if your husband gave you a rawhide bone for Christmas, all wrapped up in a Christmas box, They'd be like, no. Well, that's what we do when we give something that appeals to a human to a dog that, that doesn't fulfill them. I don't want a rawhide bone. And maybe a dog doesn't want to be like, oh, all day long. They want stuff that they're fulfilled by instead. So again,
Well,
it's incumbent on us to figure out what those things are.
yeah, and every dog's an individual, just like every person's an individual. And
Right.
imagine how you feel when you've been poked or just bugged a lot, and then pretty soon you're just done.
Oh
And I
yeah.
see that with dogs too. It just they're just enough.
Yeah. No, I was working with someone the other day that was at my house, and they had their dog on a long line, and we had been doing some long line work, and then we were just going to walk from like point A to point B to do something. And he was basically he would take a couple of steps, the dog would go in front of him, and he'd go, okay, let's go this way, let's go that way, let's go this way. And I said, you know what, why don't we let your dog off duty for a second and let him just be a dog?
Mm.
He's in Templeton. It's green. There's squirrels. There's scent. There's everything. And just let him be a dog and just walk without making him like a little sergeant all the time. And he said, you think, was I doing that? And I said, he doesn't really have time off. He doesn't really get to be a dog, and do that. Let him just sniff. Let him have dessert. This is dessert. And then you can pull him back in, start the exercise off with, maybe start walking him down with structure right beside you, and then go, okay, and let him use that long line, let him go out, let him smell, let him get his head in a gopher hole, and do a few things, and then bring him back in, and now finish the exercise with him by your side. But give him dessert every
Hmm.
now and then, because that's what fulfills them, not us. We don't want to put our head in a gopher hole, but they do.
Yeah,
That's what turns them on.
well, and have you ever attended Nelson Hodges, one of his things, one of his
I'm
seminars?
dying to. Yeah,
Oh man, you'll
I
love
have.
it. He has an exercise. Oh, did you freeze? Oh, did we lose Cheri? Is she frozen, you guys? You guys let me know in the comments. Hold on, I'll send her a message here for having a technical glitch. I'm gonna let her know. If you can click off and log back on here. So we're going to wait. We're experiencing a technical difficulty here. And yep, frozen. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So we're going to wait for Cheri to come back here. But let's put up here, Kimberly, so glad I caught this. Such a powerful insight. Yeah, it's fantastic. One of my favorite people ever. Jackie says, who wants a one-sided relationship? It can't be all take from the human. That's absolutely right. It's got to be fulfilling. And just like we have balanced trainers, we need to have a balanced relationship where that dog is just as fulfilled as that human counterpart. And that's what our job is as trainers, is we are liaison between that dog and that client. And I call people, or I tell people, I'm kind of like an attorney for that dog. I represent the animal. And so, it's my job is to help that dog's end get more fulfilled. And James, two of my favorite people. Hey, brother. And great book. He's talking about the 5 love languages. And Kimberly says, yes, the 5 love languages. I'm working on a canine version of this. That's so awesome. The 5 love languages are, you guys, I can actually show this while we're waiting for Cheri to come back. The 5 love languages are, here's the website for them, right there. 5 love languages are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. Some people love, just a physical touch, pat on the back, let them know that they're doing great. And it looks like we have Cheri's coming back on. So give me one second here. Are you back?
I'm back, but I'm in a weird part of the screen.
Okay. Well, I put the.
Can you see me? Okay.
I can. Let me put your name back on here. Can everybody hear her? Let her know. We have, I was just talking about Jackie, Kimberly Artley is writing a canine version of the 5 languages, 5 love languages. And while you were gone, awesome. I just showed people only Cheri could freeze in the most fabulous way. I guess you froze in a fabulous way on the screen. So,
well, I didn't see what it looked like. I hope it was good.
Yeah, it was good. So, and then we went over the 5 love languages, Cheri. So the 5 love languages for humans are, the first one is words of affirmation. Second one is acts of service. That's my wife's love language, is acts of service. If I clean the house and like go out and arrange the yard, like if she just loves it. It just brightens up her whole day. Right. Receiving gifts is another one. A quality time is another one with my wife, where I've shut off all electronics and it's just her and I. And that's important to understand your love languages, but also knowing that your dog has different things that motivate them as well. And if you have multiple dogs, it's different for each individual dog. And that's important to know. And affection, you're gonna know affection, folks.
Yeah, no, so it's hard, but it's temporary. It's temporary, and it's like usually they break the rule as they walk out the door. They literally can't get out to their car without petting their dog or baby talking them. But I always tell them, I promise you, your dog won't stop loving you. I promise you, his feelings won't be hurt. Mm-hmm. And I promise you, you can do it. You might wake up after 2 weeks and find out that maybe you don't want to do as much of that anymore. And they're always blown away. They always have to admit, I didn't want to admit it, but yeah, it made a huge difference in my relationship with my dog. If you just ease up on some of that, especially in the beginning, especially when they go home from a board and train. I tell people it's like sending somebody to rehab, for addiction or something, and then they come, yeah, and they learn all these, like the whys in rehab, right? It's why did I drink, or why am I addicted to this, that, or the other, whatever, and they go through all the psychological stuff, and then they but when they get out of rehab, they can't just go hang out on Friday night with their buddies at the bar, right? Wow. I mean, there's a management part. There's physical things that they can do and not do to keep their rehabilitation in place. It's not, and so in other words, you can't take a dog straight from board and train, and I've literally dropped dogs off and had like the whole family and the extended family there to greet the dog and have a party when they come home, and I'm like, oh no, this is so not what I wanted you to do.
Yeah, I go in by myself. I go into the house anytime by myself to scout it out first. To be like, okay, cool. Yeah. And then if the family, I'm like, everybody sit down. We're going to have a powwow before you even look at this dog, right? But I like what you were saying, because, I mean, what are we doing? Behavior, rehab, right? And I think if people look at that as like addiction, because these dogs are addicted. They're just addicted to the pharmaceutical company that's in their brain, because it's amygdala that's going off that produces these polypeptides that, are sending this dog into almost like a ritualistic. It is ritualistic. Once they hear a trigger, then the cycle goes, whether it be a knock at the door or the cat running across the room or whatever. And then they need that next surge to be a little bit bigger than the previous one to get that kick. And so, yeah, we are dealing with kind of a drug addict, and I've never really thought of it like somebody going home from rehab. right?
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, they've got to come home to. I mean, things have to change. That's what a lot of people don't understand. It's like it's not like you fixed an appliance and you take it home and everything is good. It's like
Mm.
you really have to work to maintain it. But everything in life is like that. You know, you gotta get a trainer and go to the gym and get all fit and buff and looking great and feeling good. And then, okay, well, I did that. Now I can go home. I don't have to go anymore. You always have to maintain in life. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. You always have to maintain. You know, but you know, the other thing that I was thinking about too, based on what you're talking about with the cortisone and the cortisol and the adrenaline and all the different stimuli that the dogs have to deal with. You know, in our day and age now, it's so hard for us to maintain any kind of calm because we live in such a high tech world. You
Mm.
know, the workshop that I just finished with my girls, the women's workshop. You know what I was seeing there with those girls, and especially two of them in particular that had dogs that were extremely reactive. But these women lived in this constant state of anxiety where they were, you know, they used their phones as their watches. So you wake up in the morning, first thing you do is roll over, turn on your watch, right, or turn on your phone to see what time it is. And oh, looks like somebody liked what I posted. Oh, looks
Yeah,
like I
I
have
got mine
five.
right here.
Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of what we were learning at this workshop was how to create different neural pathways and habits, which is just a fancy way of saying habits, so that you keep yourself in a calmer state. You keep yourself in a state where you can reframe things in your life that would normally really upset you, and you can see them differently, where you can just sort of ride past them, be present in them, and yet, you know, redefine them in such a way that they don't get you upset,
Mm.
because that's how you calm your dog down. You know, but we're in such a state of constant being adrenalized constantly. That's not how our grandparents lived or our grandparents lived. You know, with just this much access to around the clock news, if you want to, if there is such a thing anymore, you have real news.
That's another show too.
That's another show. That's
Yeah.
another. We've got about four now.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's and what was really amazing, I was telling somebody that was from the UK that was interested in my workshop this last week and wanted to know how it went. Um, you know, I was telling her about one thing that we did. One of the building blocks of getting yourself into that state of mind where you can create new neural pathways is to train your brain so that you can focus. Well, what's the way you do that? With meditation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so the women that were at the course, we all had our dogs. Everyone had their dogs there because it was about the women, their dogs, and their lives. And we meditated for 3 minutes. That was
Okay.
it. 3 minutes. A couple of the women had meditated occasionally, but not a lot. We got done with the meditation. This was so amazing. I did not expect this at all. But we got done with the meditation and we decided this would be a good time to take the dogs out on a pack walk, which normally would have done that morning, but it rained. So it was just kind of serendipitous that it worked out that way. We did a 3-minute meditation where all we did was focus on our breath. That was it. We got done and the girls were like, well, that was an eternity. Because if you don't do it, 3 minutes is an
Right.
eternity. Walk out with the leashes. 3 dogs that have never been in that pack before, these were women that I've known already, got in the pack. One of them had been up to my property, I don't know how many times. My friend had attended, she'd chatted with me before. She's been to probably 4 or 5 Lucas Agnew's workshops. She's done a ton of work, but her dog was just he had a trigger where he would just go off, and he could walk occasionally beside us a little ways away from the pack, but never in the pack. One of the other woman's dog was so reactive, unbelievably reactive, that I was afraid he would set off my pack and they would want to correct him. She couldn't get them near the pack. Not only did these dogs get in the pack, but I was allowed to let the owners take the leashes from me and walk the pack with their own dog in them.
Mm.
And the only thing that we could come up with was that we meditated first. Everybody was in a different state, and there was nothing else that was any different than before. But that's like the perfect example of the dynamic between the human and the dog, and how us being calm can create calm in the dog. And when we're
Absolutely.
calm, we're leading, right? You can't lead when you're all like all over the map in your brain and all over the map, excited and not knowing how to categorize certain things in your life that are driving you nuts. And you're fired up all the time, and you've got this unrelenting stream of negative talk going through your head. So if you can harness that, it goes such a long ways towards harnessing the problems that your dog has. It's almost immediate. Have you ever been talked like in a heated voice to somebody over the phone, or excited or upset about something, have your dog move away from you?
Oh
Ever had that
man,
happen?
I had my dog hide in the bathtub when I was arguing with this dude on the phone. And I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, sweetie," and that's because it was real. This dude I was pissed off at this guy,
Yeah.
and I finally got him on the phone, and I let him
But
know.
they're not comfortable, because
Absolutely.
to them you've become unbalanced.
Mm,
That's how I look at it. I've
mm,
done it to my own dogs before too. Just when I've been excited about something, I haven't even been angry. I've just been like, "You can't believe what happened." And I'll turn around and my dogs are slinking to the sort of to the side of the one room,
yeah.
because they're uncomfortable with me being in that heightened state of excitement. They need me to be calm. It's really fascinating.
Alex brings up a good point. A lot of people aren't calm to begin with, and that's a huge
Right.
problem. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And the key is to observe without reaction, and that's where it's important to take that 30,000 foot view. And one of my
Exactly.
favorite authors in the world, his name is Viktor Frankl. He went through the Holocaust and everything, where he was in a concentration camp. And Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is one of my top 10 books ever. But his quote that I really love is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And that's in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our
Oh, wow.
response lies our growth and our freedom. And that's what I tell my clients is like, look, you're right here, your dog is right here. Here's the stimulus, here's the reaction.
Right.
Right. I'm trying to create this. I'm trying to create a gap. So now we have a response,
Right.
instead of reaction. Um,
Yeah.
do you agree with that? Is that something that makes
Oh,
sense to you?
absolutely. No, no, you're absolutely right. And you only have a few seconds.
Mm,
If I don't know if you've ever seen, I love this woman, Mel Robbins. Have you ever watched
mm,
her or read? She's got a book out called The 5 Second Rule. She's
no.
amazing. Kind of yeah, Mel Robbins. She's got a lot of YouTube videos on. I saw her in a TED Talk accidentally one night. I love to watch TED Talks. And she was on, and she had this broken life. She was an attorney. Her marriage was failing. She was drinking way too much. She was not being good to her kids. She couldn't get up in the morning. That was her big thing. She thought, she'd get up, and then she was immediately stressed because she was late. She had the kids out. She was late on that. So her morning started with this, right
Huh.
off the bat. And so she decided that she had to start getting up at 5 a.m. She just was going to get up at 5 a.m. Every morning she would turn over, hit the snooze button. And then one night she was watching a rocket launch on TV, and it was counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And she just went, "That's it." And the next morning her alarm went off, and she went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and she stood up. And that was the beginning of the change in the rest of her life. Once she got up and she had accomplished that, she knew that everything else was going to fall in place. She was present that morning. She was up before her kids. She got to work on time. And she started to apply that rule to everything that she did. She says that in 5 seconds, we have a 5 second window of doing the right thing or the wrong thing in almost everything in our life. We think we want to go to the gym. We think maybe we shouldn't go, maybe we shouldn't. And in that time, we have 5 seconds of feeling like we should go to the gym. But if we don't pick up our bag and walk out the door, or make us, head in that direction, in 5 seconds it'll go away, and we'll be able to talk ourselves out of it. But it's the
Absolutely.
same thing with our clients and their dogs. I mean, they've got that little tiny window of opportunity of making a choice of how they're going to be with that dog. Are they going to go into the old way of like, "Oh, now see, there he does it again," or are they going to go into that other way of leading, of at least making an attempt to appear to be a leader in their dog's eyes, until it becomes who they actually are? Not just trying, but this is who they actually are now. It's fascinating. I haven't read the book. The YouTube video alone the TED Talk alone was life changing just to watch it. It's really a fascinating concept.
Well, I'm checking
It's
out
called
her
the five.
site,
Yeah, the 5 second.
melrobbins.com.
No, Rob, did you find it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm checking it out.
Yeah.
It's 5 second rule. I mean, it's great, just like what you said. And basically, she's encouraging people to seize. If you don't start doing things that you don't feel like doing, you'll wake up 1 year from today and be in the exact same place, is what she says.
Right.
And action is key. There's a saying that talk is cheap, right?
Right.
and
Right.
and that's it. This stuff we can throw out hypotheticals all day, or study about stuff, but until we're boots on the ground working with these dogs. And honestly, I think that that's another big aspect of this, is that a lot of these philosophies that people adhere to with the dog training, in the dog training world, are done in an acoustic chamber called a science lab, or not done in the real world.
That,
And that's a huge problem I see, or not done with the consideration of instinct and predation,
right.
and effects of different things, like I was saying earlier about these human contraptions in the world that we belong to, that might invoke a fear response in this dog. That basically all this stuff that was done in the space that was a safe space, so to speak, is out the window, because we didn't deal
Right.
with that dog head on, and address the problem right then and there, or introduce the dog to a stimulus in a healthy way that the dog sees, oh, okay, this is normal. Excuse me. This is normal, nothing to be afraid of,
Right.
Kimberly Artley says, yay, yes. Okay, there's an S at the end there. Yes, meditation, beautiful. We can't lead through emotion. In meditation, we return to our beingness, who we are, as opposed to our doingness, who we've been programmed to think we are.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Oh no, she's absolutely right. I mean, that's the meditation is at the key of everything. That's how, I mean, our thoughts shape our lives, basically. Our thoughts shape our lives, period. I mean, it's everything, but at the core of that is to understand your thoughts, and meditation is the perfect training ground for that. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be short increments. It just, it's more important to do meditation on a regular basis than do long sessions of it once a week. Literally 3 to 5 minutes at a time is enough. If you can, I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. You can find 3 to 5 minutes, to meditate. And no, Kimberly is very articulate. She's an amazing writer, and she has a really beautiful way of putting things that resonate with people. She's a good girl. She knows that. I wrote the forward to her book.
What's her book? Is it
Okay, Kimberly.
it's not the 5 love languages, is it? It's would you
Yeah,
mind
my
posting up
dog,
a link to your book, Kimberly, so we can
my
send
dog, my
people over
Buddha.
there? My
Yeah,
dog, my Buddha. I love it.
my dog,
I
my
love it.
Buddha. Yeah, it's a beautiful book, and it's the way it's done in snippets throughout the book is really nice. It's good.
Well, and I would
But
love maybe possibly to have her on one of these live streams, Kimberly. I'm going to reach out to you after this and see if you'd be interested on talking
yeah,
with
he
me
would be great to talk to.
a little bit.
But yeah, it's about, a lot of it's just about doing what you need to do, whether you feel like it or not. Like ideas and sitting around and talking about things is great, but execution is everything. Ideas are
Hmm.
nothing without execution. But and this that can be applied obviously with your clients, and just telling them, look, you don't, like I said, just embrace what I told you, and whether you like it or not. Just, you're here, you spent the
Yeah.
money to be here, you spent the time to be here. You may as well do something different when you go home.
Yeah.
And whether you like it or not, whether it bothers you or not, there's a lot of things in life that we don't like to do on a regular basis, but we have to do them,
Hmm.
and that's the way life works. So, yeah,
Soren Kierkegaard says, to know and not to act is not to know.
right.
Right. And so that's
Yeah,
that action is key. And there's another, because we belong in such a distracted world. I just read a really good book not too long ago. It's called Deep Work, uh, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. And I'm going to put a link to that in the comment section here, because it's a wonderful book, and it tells you that and this is something that I do when I work in my glass studio. I'm a glass artist as well, And
Uh-huh.
it's something that uh, if you take and you want to learn something new, um, you have to dedicate time to it. And there's another book called One Small Step. Here, I'm going to post up these books here while I'm thinking about it. But
Yeah.
it talks about, um,
Oh, yeah.
you know, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching, and that's it. Is that step, taking action to just go, even though the task might be daunting, to not look at the whole task, to just look at what's in front of you at that time. And and people, if you want to learn something new, and I tell people just dedicate 1 hour a day. If you can dedicate 1 hour a day to learning something new, um, then at the end of 1 year, if you've dedicated 1 hour a day, you have worked 40-hour weeks. So over 2 full-time months at that task. And
Yeah, that's
so,
amazing. That's
you know,
up.
it
Yeah.
adds up. And just like when you are driving across country, if you have to drive from New York to LA at the nighttime, you don't have to see your whole trip in front of you. You can see, just the 10 feet that your headlights provide, and you're going to get there. And so
Right.
a lot of people get daunted or they get overwhelmed at the whole task instead of just going forward with it and celebrating the victories as they come about.
Right.
Um,
Right. Incremental training. I always
yeah,
refer to incremental train. I always refer to incremental training when I'm working with my clients and their dogs and telling them don't don't expect too much. Don't set yourself up for failure. Take a small chunk and like you said, celebrate the victories of what you're able to accomplish with your dog. Otherwise, if you think you need to get from A to Z the first day, then you're going to fail, and so's your dog, and then you're just going to be disappointed. And so I always tell people, why don't, if you're trying to get, for example, I use this a lot when you're trying to get your dog out of a crate and you want him to be calm on the way out of the crate, and he's losing his marbles. Maybe it's a brand new dog. Um, don't expect to get 100% from him. Don't expect to get him to go back in the back of the crate, sit down, give you eye contact, take a deep breath and wait. Just tell yourself today, on the first day of training this dog, I'm going to get 30% compliance from him. I'll get 30% of what I want. And that way, if you get 30%, you got 100% of what you set out to get. And then tomorrow, ask for 35% or
mm,
maybe 45% or whatever. But that way, you're setting yourself and the dog up to be pleased with what you've been able to accomplish, as
yeah,
opposed to thinking, well, so and so does it better, or I can't do this, or getting frustrated. But yeah, just
yeah.
like you
Baby
said, you just need to
steps.
see the whole way. Yeah.
And and know that this is something that people ask me, how long do I have to train my dog for? And just like you were talking about earlier about working out, it's something that it's not about a time. It's something that we interact with our dog for the life of the animal, and
Yeah.
there's no set course. I mean, there's set obedience, and there's like boarding trains where I'll take your dog for a particular time, and then bring him back to you. And by the way, I got an idea from Brian that I have implemented here for my local clients is that I take them home for a week and then they come right back to me. And so we can talk about anything that popped up during that week that dog went back
Yeah.
home, and then we can work on that. But mostly it's just working on them, sticking on the routine. And how do you do that? How do you get people to remain accountable and stick with the program? Because that's a big one too.
Oh,
Just making them understand the
yeah.
benefits of it, I guess.
Well, I used to beat myself up if I couldn't. I just was absolutely getting people by the shoulders and like, you've got to learn this, you've got to learn. But I have a more relaxed attitude about that now because it's not going to make anybody learn any faster by doing this. I just tell myself, and I tell my students that have the same frustrations, is I'm just here to share information with you. You can take what you want. You can take all of it if you want. You can take some of it if you want. But that's what my job is. It's not to make you do it. It's to just share information with you based on what I know thus far in my life. And I tell them that, really, if you want to break it down, I got the dog started on the path of recovery, but now this is really just the beginning. And you don't have to do hours and hours of formal training with your dog every day. I mean, life gives you a zillion
That's right.
opportunities, a
That's right.
zillion I mean, I don't know how many
Conference
times a day.
calls, bathroom breaks, dinner, making dinner. There's so many things
Everything.
that dog can do a downstay, and they're like, "How long do I downstay
Yeah.
in for?" I'm like, "How long is your conference call for?" They're like, 45 minutes. I'm like,
Yeah.
45 minutes.
Yeah. Going through thresholds,
Yeah.
people, come, but when we had our last workshop, we had 37 students. So people coming in and out of the door, and I have a very manipulative, extremely drop dead gorgeous, handsome pit bull named Bjorn. And everybody thinks they're special to him. He's a player, I mean, if he was a human, he would have a string of women a mile long. And he manipulates
Bjorn.
everyone. Yeah, and he comes in and he'll body slam the weakest woman in the group. He
Hmm.
will find her instantaneously and body slam her. And every now and then he'll do this open mouth thing, which really bothers me. And so it's not a bite; it's just an open mouth. It's just like an overexcited thing. But he'll do it on their hand,
Oh
and
yeah.
so now we have this thing now when the students come, it's like a perfect opportunity for me to have Bjorn go around the corner and lay on a bed and wait. And the second, because I've conditioned him so well on his place, that once he goes over there, he immediately goes into a semi-comatose state, because I've taught him that's what that bed represents, is
Right.
that's your Zen spot. That's where, go there, stay there, relax there. Everything's cool there. I never pet my dogs on their beds. I don't give them food on their beds. That is just the place where they go, where it's always safe, it's always cool, it's always quiet. And then people can come in the house and he literally will just sit there and watch them. But if he's off that bed and he gets overstimulated, he's going to go body slam somebody, So everybody's got their little skeleton in the closet. He's
Yeah.
mine. I just
Well,
let him out for the sake of education. But
well,
that's what it's like.
I want to have a dog trainer confessional too, where I want to have people, because I've had my clients be like, "You mean it's not like a doggy utopia at your ranch?" And I'm like,
Oh,
"No."
please, no such thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I don't know what, but it's, we as dog trainers, we have dogs that, sometimes are very challenging for us, but excuse me, that's sometimes what got us into this business too, is
right.
like what Cheri was saying with her Roddy, and JT was saying with her Malinois earlier, is necessity is the mother of invention sometimes, and when we have a
Right.
problem that needs to be fixed because we have a liability situation in our hands, that kind of puts a little fuel on the fire. Tell
Yeah.
me about your Lucas Agnew workshops, and I want anybody that might be interested in those. Oh, hold on one second. We have a comment here by Alex. My favorite way of looking at calmness comes from NDT. What's NDT?
I don't know.
Natural dog. Hey, Alex, what's NDT? That calm is actually accessible through the hunt. Many people suppress prey drive to achieve calm. This has its merit, but if you truly understand it at all, the irony exists in understanding that unleashing your dog's drive can bring him or her calmness. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
agree. Something I might elaborate on later. I would love for you to elaborate on that, Alex. Maybe we could do a live session as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, releasing any prey drive. I mean, you're stimulating an intrinsic desire with that dog. They're going to be fulfilled. I mean, it's something that can bring calmness,
Right.
but it has to be in a structured way, and we have to do
Right.
that when the foundation is laid beforehand, and so we can have a good structure to fall back
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Right.
When you get Brian on, he's the king of drives, and he'll blow you away with his drive
Cool.
information. It's amazing, and that's one of his fortes in our workshop that you ask about. Kind of what how those got birthed. I'd been teaching workshops for years and years by myself, which was crazy to think about it, but I was doing them for years, and then Brian and I decided to do them together, and we experimented a little bit with different formats, and every time we would do a workshop, we would always go, let's do less talk and more hands-on. And then
Mm.
we'd lessen it. And then the next one, let's do even less talk. We literally at one point had a PowerPoint presentation. We had video and all this stuff. And we noticed that what people really want is they want to get their hands on the dog, and that's how they learn. You know, they would say, well, you know, I learn best by doing. We all learn best by doing. All of us do. It's not just an individual thing. So what we came up with was the format that we're super happy with. Really, really happy with right now. And what we do is, are you still there? Because the screen just got
Yeah,
very
I
small.
put up your Lucas Agnew website, so that's what people are seeing right
Okay.
now. I have
Oh,
them
perfect.
right up here. So, you know, and this is lucasagnew.com. So just keep talking. We can hear you.
Okay. So Brian and I are really good trainers together. We're kind of a yin and yang. We agree philosophically on pretty much everything, but we have our own little fortes that we do when we teach. And so what we decided to do, and it's working really well, and we are we love it. I mean, there's not much more that we would tweak about this course now, but we have 20 audit spots. Sometime, well, I think we're up to 25 now. We do 20 audit spots, 10 working spots. So 10 people bring a dog. We don't have any, it doesn't have to just be a good, happy-go-lucky dog. It can be, we want a dog with an issue, right? We want things to work on. If somebody doesn't have a dog, they can borrow a dog from my shelter that, you know, that's new, that needs work or whatever. But we have 10 working spots. And then what we do is we start the class at 9 in the morning. We do pack walk from 8 to 9. That's option because some people don't want to get up that early or don't want to walk. And so we do the pack walk, and then we start the class at 9. And for 30 minutes, if Brian goes up first, he works with a person with a dog for 30 minutes only. And we literally have Christine, who's also a trainer in Houston. She comes out and manages our course because she's really good at time management, and we suck at it. We will run over and just keep talking if somebody doesn't pull us down off stage or off the platform of teaching. And so for 30 minutes, Brian will take a dog and he will work with that dog and get as far as he can get in 30 minutes, right? Explaining to the owner what the owner wants to see, what the dog's issues are. The dog goes up. Next 30 minutes, another dog comes out. I work that dog, and we do that all day. Literally, we break for lunch for about an hour and 15 minutes. We come back and we work, and usually we can get almost all the dogs in run twice. And in the interim, they're all kenneled in these big runs that we have built in this big arena area that we have on my property. There's 14 runs, and the dogs are all kenneled up. And the first day, it's insane. It's just barking, 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 whining, crazy, you know. We always warn our students. We always say the first day is messy because we're not sure what we've got. I mean, somebody stands up in front of us. We have no idea. We may not have never met the person. We have no idea who the dog is, what their issues are. So we have to get the whole idea of teaching this way is to teach our trainers how to think on their feet, how to develop what we refer to as raw intuitive talent, because that's what you're going to get when you ring somebody's doorbell and you show up for a consultation. You have no idea. Even if the owner told you this is why you're coming over, they don't know how to evaluate their dog. It might not even be that dog that's causing the problem in the home. It might be the other one, right? I mean, they're not professional trainers, so how would they evaluate that? How would they know?
Right.
So that's what we're trying to teach our students, is how to think on their feet and how to develop a strategy so that they can go into any situation and any curveball can be thrown at them and they can go, let's do this. All right, that's not working. Why don't we try this? Or can we get a dog out and walk that dog by here and see if we can, which way we're going to go to get this dog's reactivity down? It's an amazing course. And it's a 3-day course. And by the middle of the second day, it's like a different place down there. Everybody's calm. It's totally different. You're already seeing dogs. I hate this word. It's so campy, but you see the transformation. I really do hate that word. I've got to come up with another word.
Why do you hate that word so much?
I don't know. I think it's overused.
Okay.
I just think it's overused. You know, it obviously means, I mean, we use it all the time because you see a lot of transformation in life when you're doing things right, but it's just overused. But it's just like a different place by the middle of the second day. You know, the dogs are calm, the people are feeling better, their confidence is building, and then by the third day, it's amazing. Like everybody's completely fried by the afternoon of the third day, and by then everyone's dogs have been run through these 30-minute segments, over and several times by then. So you get the influence of the pack as the pack begins to settle. and transform. You get that influence from that pack on the rest of the dogs as well. So that makes a huge difference in things.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
how we do it.
it's like a B2B and B2C, you know, where it's the dogs are influencing the dogs on the back end and the people, I mean, are learning and influencing the relationship on the front end too.
Yeah.
That's how I
Yeah.
think of it. And then you guys also sell a line of leashes too. I see people using
Oh,
your
yeah.
leash line. The Mutt Master from Instagram is using yours. Noah,
Yeah.
up in wine country
Brian,
there.
I'll see if Brian, can you hand me a Lucas Agnew leash?
Yeah, see if Brian can put his pretty
Yeah.
mug on the camera here. Say hi to
Yeah.
everybody.
Our leash was also an accident. It was funny because we were trying to find the right, the right leash. It was driving us crazy because so many people struggle so much with leashes. And Brian used to be a climber, so he was really into quality rope. And so
Right.
these
Yeah.
leashes are they're made with the same kind of rope. You put your mug over here. He wants to talk to you.
I want to see its handsome face.
Well, actually, and my screen is all screwed up, but they can see
Wait, come
me.
down a little bit lower. There. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Lucas Agnew making their first appearance. I see his eye. Here, you need to scoot over just a little bit more. There you go. There we go. Here, I can put you on solo. There we can see full screen. So there we are. There's Brian Agnew and Cheri Lucas. Who? When is your guys' next your next event?
October. What's the date, Brian? It's already half sold out. We haven't even announced it yet.
I don't know. I don't have my phone.
Okay, is it listed on there? I think it did, but I think it was listed as 2017. Yeah, the one on the website is October 13th through the 15th, but it says 2017, so I don't think that's this year. I don't know if you got the new one up there.
Oh, that shouldn't be up there.
That should be 2018 or.
Oh.
Good
maybe.
catch, Bill. We'll go for that.
Thanks,
okay,
Bill.
You bet. Yeah, that's what I do. No.
Yeah,
but
it should be there on. Well, we've got the UK is coming up in July. Brian's doing. We split up when we go internationally because it's just doesn't make sense for both of us to go. So Brian's doing the UK in the end of July.
End of June into July.
And I'm doing Germany in August.
Awesome. So we'll have Brian. Will be joining us on a live session. And Cameron Thompson says, "Hey guys, great workshop. Everyone should attend." So, Cameron Thompson.
Hey Cameron, happy birthday!
Checks in the mail, Cameron.
Did Cameron hear me?
Happy birthday, Cameron! Everybody, happy birthday! Here, I'll put up a little flower frame there. That's for you, Cameron. Happy birthday!
There you go.
So let me see these leashes here. What do you got?
So these are our leashes. I'll let Brian explain. But I just will tell you that they were accidental. That we wanted to make these leashes for ourselves to use, and then our students started seeing them, going, "Hey, where'd you guys get those leashes?" And the next thing you know, Brian called me, goes, "So and so wants 4 of these leashes." Next thing you know, I think we're selling them literally to 30 some odd countries now.
Wow.
We can't keep them in stock. Our supplier is really struggling to keep them in stock. So we make these, the longer ones, and then we make our long lines, which are really, really popular. The training long lines are 15 feet. But I'll let Brian.
We have a 42-inch one as well. I mean, a climbing rope is basically what's known as a kern mantle rope. And I have a sample over there, but I won't go and grab it. But basically what that is that there's, hundreds and hundreds of small pieces of nylon rope that are spun in here. They're spun tight on a machine, and then they're covered with this sheath. So that protects the core, basically. And that's what a kern mantle is that there's a core and then there's a sheath, or a mantle is what they refer to it as. So it has some dynamic principles to it. So they do have a little give to them, especially more on the long lines, which is kind of important because it, if a dog bolts on you or something, it's going to absorb a lot of that energy, not only on the dog, but on the handler as well, because our shoulders and our elbows get hammered. So yeah, that was the whole principle behind it. And then,
this is
as
the
you
best
can see,
part,
this is most.
Can you hold it up just a little bit more? Hold it up right there. Perfect. Yeah, there we go.
Little knot here. So a lot of leashes, slip leashes, use like a swedge, like aluminum swedge, to terminate this this connection to make the loop here, and then also to make the hand loop. But ours is basically a knot. That's a pretty intricate knot, and
cool.
Keeps it very streamlined. You know, there's not a lot of weight to them, and that's what we really struggled with. And then we added this backup, so when you use the power loop,
tell them about the power loop, because that's the main part.
Yeah, the power loop is basically, we have videos of it that I've posted on my page.
Okay.
But you basically, it ends up being like not a head halter because it acts differently, but you just twist it and create a figure 8 like that, and then this loop is going to go over the dog's muzzle, and then you cinch the stopper down, and then this backup is because some dogs will try and paw that loop off, and if they paw it off, you're going to have all this slack, and they can actually back out of it.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you figure these things out? Well, because it happened to me. So
yeah.
You know, but I was quick enough to catch the dog on the collar. So we add these backups to them when you're using that power loop in case the dog ever, Hoku.
Dog almost.
Hoku wanted to frame the shot there. So anyways, so that's it. And we got, leather stoppers, and so they're awesome. They're great leashes.
And the cool thing about them too, Bill, is, one size fits all, whereas a halty, you have to get 0, 1, 2, different sizes, but this literally will fit just about any dog except maybe a toy breed where the rope would be maybe impede the vision a little bit, but it's a narrow enough rope that it doesn't, like when you put it on the dogs, they can see over it, which some of them are too thick to do that. And also underneath the chin, when you do the power loop, the pressure is right here, right? It's not on the throat. So the people that are like, oh, I don't want anything choking my dog. You can get so much more control of the dog if you can control the head. So it just crosses under here, and they're I think they're the highest quality leash on the market, without a doubt.
Well, I know that they're popular with dog trainers, and that should tell you, a lot right there.
Yeah, that's who we sell mostly too, is dog trainers.
Yeah, I just sent out, 2 orders of 40 different leashes, and I have a guy that just ordered like 100. And we have a rescue that ordered some, and so we always, give the rescue a discount, on the leashes. We pretty much give them a wholesale discount for the rescues or shelters.
And people find the leashes at lucasagnew.com. Is that where they purchase them at?
Yep.
Here, let me put that on the screen here just so people can see that. lucasagnew.com. Awesome. And then check them out. Lucas Agnew is the site that you're going to fill out if you want to audit or have a working spot for their upcoming seminar in Templeton, California, coming up here in October. What's that?
In October. And in November, Art Ortiz is hosting us in Dallas. November 2nd, 4th. That should be up there. If it's not, I'm going to be totally embarrassed.
No, it's not yet. So.
No, it was though, but maybe there's a cookies thing going on or something.
Yeah, maybe. I'm on a Safari, so on a Mac, so I don't know if that makes any difference whatsoever. But
that's weird. Yeah, because I actually saw it on there. I actually saw it on there 2 days ago. So
thanks, Bill.
Thanks.
Yeah, you betcha. That's what I do. Cameron Thompson says one of my community members ordered 15 for our rescue. Such an incredibly helpful gift. So thank you very much for what you guys do, not just for your rescue, but also for rescues throughout. Providing them with great tools that they can utilize to help dogs, and that's what we're in this ultimately for, is to help dogs.
Right, and their people. Yeah, absolutely.
And their people, So, well, Cheri, I think that's it. Is there anything else that you'd like to say? Oh, Wellness Unleashed. I wanted to any ladies that are interested in working with you on that. How do they do that?
They can go to my website, which is CheriLucasDogBehavior.com. And it's CheriLucas, CheriLucasDogBehavior.com, and there'll be a link right there for programs, and then Wellness Unleashed. And I have a really thorough description of what it's about. And it was really birthed by me. It really feels like it was birthed seriously as something I wanted to do for so long. And it just, as my time as a trainer has evolved, and as we talked about earlier in the show, it becomes so much more about the person than it does the dog. And I just saw women that, their confidence issues were so low, and they had, the way they were framing their life was just so negative that it was reflecting on the dog, or the dog's behavior was reflecting on what they were going through, however you want to work, probably in both ways. And so I ended up spending so much more time with the woman than I was the dog, that, and even I had a couple of women ask me, could you coach me privately? And I thought, I need to do something with this. I really need to do something with this, because I talk about it a lot without getting, we're not at the end of the show, not the top of the show, but I went through it. I'll just tell you real briefly, a 20-year, starting in my teenagers, of chronic depression, and an eating disorder. But it's been 20 years since then. So I learned a lot in that time. And what I did when I put together this workshop a couple of years ago, I've since rebranded it and made it meatier, where women actually have tools that can help them develop the skill of emotional well-being. It's so important, because it's really everything about, if you're going to be a good leader, you've got to be emotionally healthy. And it's critical. And that's where when we started talking about the meditation, that's at the very beginning of the course, is learning how to meditate, so you can begin to focus your thoughts, because you can shape your life by your thoughts. But if you can't control your thoughts, you're doomed. So if you're trying to fix your dog, and your thoughts of the way you see yourself is messed up, then there's not a lot of hope out there for you. That sounds really negative.
You're screwed. Yeah, no, I absolutely know.
I'm starting to get depressed just thinking about it. Yeah. But that's how that came about. And I keep them really small. I have no more than 8 women.
Wow.
I'm having another one in September, but my assistant and I just talked about it yesterday, and we don't have an exact date, but it will be in September. But nice, safe environment for women, just a few women, 2 days, and you're fried by the end of the second day.
I bet, man. Emotionally raw. Yeah, just but it's gonna be healing, and and that's I notice that sometimes 85% of my clients are women.
Oh yeah, that's just it. It's usually the case across the board with trainers, and so women are the ones that usually make the calls. But this is something I wanted to do, to give these women some actual tools and techniques that they could leave my workshop with and actually change their life. I mean, really, literally change their life if they apply it. If they don't apply it, it's just like a dog consultation, or a board and behave. It's like some of the things you have to do in life, you have to do them whether you feel like them or not. And then all of a sudden they become a habit. One of the examples that I gave, if almost all of us have tried smoking at some point, cigarettes, right? When you were kids. A lot of people still do. But when you first try smoking, you cough, you throw up, it's horrible, right? You hate it. And your friends just tell you when you're a kid, well, just keep trying it.
So it'll get better, dude.
It'll get better, dude. Yeah, you won't cough, you won't vomit. And then pretty soon you get to where you're okay with it. And then fast forward 20 years, you're totally addicted to it. So that's a habit, right? That's a neural pathway. It's a way of thinking where you actually made yourself do something you didn't want to do, and all of a sudden you became addicted to it. So you can do that with working out. You can make yourself go to the gym, hate every minute of it, and wake up one morning like I get, where I'm going to crawl out of my skin if I can't get to the gym. So those are, positive ways of thinking, and you can apply that to your dog and to the way you're being with your dog, the way you anticipate failure or success with your dog. It's an amazing skill if you can get it, and if you're willing to commit to just doing tiny little increments of things over and over again until you create these neural pathways.
Yeah, well, and then celebrate your victories as you go along, and pretty soon you're going to look back at the ground you covered, and you're going to be absolutely amazed.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is, what I hear is follow your heart, but use your head.
Exactly. Good advice, Bill.
Awesome. Well, Cheri, I thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm definitely going to tap you in the future to see if maybe we could do another show on rescues, and we'll talk about that. And that's what you said. It's a whole other show. I'm gonna hold you to it. So thank you, everybody, for and Amy says practice daily. That's absolutely right. So true. Practice daily. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Oh, my pleasure.
To be on the show. Yeah, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation, and I look forward. I'm going to come down someday, check out your space, and possibly attend one of your events as well, and hang out with you and Brian.
That would be great. We'd love it. Yeah.
Alrighty, everybody. So, and you can hold on 1 second after I let go. We'll still be on live back here, so I'll say goodbye to you off air here in just a second. And bye, everybody. We'll see you next time.